Salam alaikum. Warm greetings from England. My name is Andrew Ashdown, Reverend Dr. Andrew Ashdown. I am an Anglican priest. I also work for a small charity, Humanitarian Aid Relief Trust UK, which works with partners in various parts of the world and very conflicted parts of the world. And I've been travelling in the Middle East for many years. My master's degree was in the interface between the Abrahamic religions, and my doctorate was in Christian-Muslim relations in Syria. Thank you for the honour of inviting me to respond to the excellent article on the connection between religious intolerance and holy ignorance, and the discussion on religious freedom. I am not an Islamic scholar, so will not attempt to claim expertise that I do not have. My studies have been in the field of interreligious relations, and particularly the interface between Islam and Christianity. I have travelled extensively in the Middle East for nearly 40 years, but sadly I have never visited Iran, though it has long been an ambition and a wish to do so. Recently, my extensive research on Christian-Muslim relations in Syria has involved multiple visits to Syria during the course of the war, and meeting with faith leaders and faith communities across the country. My research was published last year by Routledge in a book entitled Christian-Muslim Relations in Syria, Historic and Contemporary Religious Dynamics in a Changing Context. It was published by Routledge and has been given global distribution. What I shall attempt to do is, in this brief response, is to explain why I believe that relationship and religious dialogue with mutual respect and understanding is not only essential for peaceful cohabitation, but is at the heart of the very nature of humanity and of God's will for humanity, as expressed in both the Christian scriptures and in the Quran. I do so, of course, from a Christian perspective. Whilst acknowledging differences between our respective faiths, we do so with an understanding of a commonality in a desire as children of God to love God and to love our neighbour, and to do so in a spirit of mutual respect and understanding. Both Christianity and Islam claim to be universal faiths meant for all of humanity, and that we are all humanity, one humanity under God. Theological doctrines may divide us, but faith in God unites us. There are certain tenets that we share. The Abrahamic faiths share common roots, and we honour key prophetic figures in our traditions, with particular honour given to Maryam and, of course, to Isa, Jesus, though we differ in the level of significance that we ascribe to Jesus. We all believe that God has revealed himself to humanity and hold scriptures that express that revelation, and prayer is central to our respective traditions. As Muslims or Christians, we try to understand the will of God for our lives. Faith teaches us humility and love, devotion, and recognition of God's supremacy over human interpretation and understanding. As the Quran states, Surah 11, "Had your Lord so wished, he would have made all humanity one ummah." And again, "People, we created you all from a single man and a single woman, and made you into races and tribes so that you should get to know one another." We are therefore called to be in relationship with one another, a relationship rooted in God's love for all humanity. We cannot truly pray to God the Father of all if we treat any people other than in brotherly love and in a brotherly fashion. For all men are created in God's image. As the Bible says, "Beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God." Everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, for God is love. The Iranian Shia scholar Sayyid Mahmud Talikhani, in his mystical philosophy, asserted that the reality of faith, according to the Quran and the prophetic tradition, is ultimately known to God alone. Therefore, Muslims must judge the faith of any person or community by its manifestation in worship and good deeds. As Surah number 3, There are among the people of the book those who have faith in God and in what God revealed to you and in what he revealed to them. They are humble before God and do not exchange God's revelations for a trifling price. They shall have their reward with their Lord, and God is swift in reckoning. As Christians and Muslims, we share a belief that God has revealed himself to humanity. There are differences in our understanding of how that revelation is manifested, but we must recognize that divine wisdom is far greater than the limits of human ignorance, and God has the capacity to work in ways through means far beyond our imagining. In his article, Ali Hassania rightly identifies different kinds of tolerance. There is the tolerance that respects human rights and religious freedom, and tolerance of concepts and actions to the point that damages individuals, communities and society. What Ali Hassania terms political tolerance may fall into this latter category. But at the same time, we have to be discerning in judgment, and also remember that judgment is God's alone. God created diversity in the world, and the diversity of contexts mean that little is black and white. Judgment requires wise and careful discernment with humble recognition of human limitations. We're all created different, and it is God's will that there is difference. Once again in Surah Quran, in Surah 30, verse 22, surely in the diversity of your languages and your colours there is a divine sign if you can only understand. Diversity is not bad. It is an act of divine mercy that we are different, that we can have a rich spirituality that takes different forms and different traditions. There is much that I agree with in Ali Hassania's article, but one point with which I respectfully disagree, and that is the principle that pre-Islam was a time of ignorance. My view is that throughout history, God has revealed himself in diverse ways to all of humanity. And in the religious traditions of all cultures, there is much God-given wisdom from which we can learn and through which we can discern the revelation of God through the ages. From its inception, Islam was nourished by the piety, the law and the spirituality of the people of the book, Jews and Christians. In ancient Arabia, the desert monks provided hope and healing, faith and fulfillment for generations of men and women. From Jesus to St. Paul to Muhammad, Christian spirituality and learning provided fascination and mystery for Arab communities. And that monastic tradition continues and is growing in the Middle East today. As the Quran states, Surah 29, do not dispute with the people of the book except in the fairest manner, save with those of them who have committed wrong. Say, we have faith in that which was sent down to us and that which was sent down to you. Our God is your God, and your God is one God. To him we are submitters, Muslims. There are, of course, later traditions in the Quran that are much more exclusive and judgmental of non-Muslims. But there can be no greater need in the world today, when there is so much conflict, and in the face of the rise of extremist ideologies, than to recover the sense of common purpose under God. The purpose to love and serve God and his people in a spirit of peace and reconciliation, to do his will for the good of all humanity. The launch by 138 Muslim scholars from around the world of A Common Word Between Us and You on 13th of October 2007 was a momentous recognition of that need by Muslim scholars. The follow-up declaration on 4th of February 2019, a joint declaration on human fraternity, signed by Pope Francis and Sheikh Ahmed Al-Tayeb of Al-Azhar, affirmed the adoption of a culture of dialogue as the path, mutual cooperation as the code of conduct, reciprocal understanding as the method and standard of behaviour between the two religions. And encouragement was given to develop a spread of the culture of tolerance. This has become more important than ever, as the document recognised, for the following reasons. Our modern world has developed several things. It's developed a desensitized conscience. It's developed a distance from religious values. It's developed a greater sense of individualism and materialism, which has damaged that sense of mutual responsibility for society. It's developed a deterioration in the moral sphere. It's developed a laziness in making the effort to know God. And this itself is a cause of ignorance and misunderstandings that in turn lead to unhelpful divisions and hostility. It's developed frustrations of inequalities and injustices that contribute to extremist tendencies. It's focused on political and economic interests of nations, societies, individuals and organizations. It's created situations of injustice. If we are to not live in ignorance, then we need to be able to perceive God's presence where He is revealed. Knowing God requires exploration, contemplation and inquiry. This makes it necessary for us to engage with the world and with others, to see the hand of God in the Creator and in the created. That engagement requires dialogue. Dialogue is not about convincing the other. It is about understanding, honest engagement and communication. Honest dialogue helps us understand ourselves in context to others. It helps us understand our own beliefs more clearly. It helps us helps others better understand who we are and what we stand for. It challenges stereotypes and prejudice. Dialogue helps us gain understanding of the beliefs and values of others. It contributes to peaceful relations, and it helps us find solutions to mutual problems. In the Jewish scriptures, Micah wrote, "He has showed you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." Doing those things is a call to God's people. It's a call to understanding. It's a call to social action, a call to peace building and courage, a call to worship, and an honesty in which we speak the truth in love, as Paul writes in letters to the Ephesians. A well-known Lebanese Eastern Orthodox bishop and theologian, George Cotter, who is still alive, believes very much in the importance of a living Christian-Muslim dialogue. Following the early Christian saints Gregory of Nyssa, Dionysius the Areopagite, and Maximus the Confessor, he speaks of the impossibility of describing the essence of God because it is an incomprehensible mystery. In one of his most influential articles, Cotter writes, "If obedience to the Master means following him wherever we find traces of his presence, we have an obligation to investigate the authentic spiritual life of non-Christians. Thus, starting with the mystery of God as Creator, with the mystery of God in Christ as we believe as Christians, and the mystery of God as Spirit, Cotter explores the implications of God's and our relationship with all humanity. Cotter maintains that the only name given to God is love, and if so, then it is love that expresses the divine work in relation to him and to others and to the other. Love, he states, is the cradle of faith." Wonderful phrase. The love is the cradle of faith. For him, echoing the early fathers of the East, faith, spiritual experience and authenticity of this religious tradition of the other as divinely inspired faith. The most urgent goal that both communities can strive for in the face of increasingly extremist and exclusivist religious ideologies, which in my view represent the true face of religious ignorance, is the mutual acceptance of the legitimacy and authenticity of the religious tradition of the other as divinely inspired faith. That's an important goal. When we accept each other as fellow human beings and good neighbours, as friends and neighbours in the quest for social and political justice, for theological harmony and spiritual progress on the way to God, then we can inspire the communities in which we live to follow the example of our fellowship, our respect, and our love for each other. In acceptance of each other equally as children of God and not as opponents, we will find the wisdom of our respective traditions as they speak to us with authenticity and dignity. The need for this is as great now as it has ever been. the misuse of religious dogma to justify sectarian violence, the rise in religious and ideological extremism that is emerging from many faiths, the increase in political violence between nations to assert political, economic and geopolitical interests and hegemony, all are causing profound suffering to the innocent majority and heightening global insecurity. Yet true faith has the capacity and the responsibility to be a vehicle for reconciliation, for respect and for peace building. That is why I believe dialogue and respect is so important amidst difference and with the other. Many Eastern Christians who have lived alongside Islam since the emergence of Islam speak of three kinds of dialogue. The dialogue of life, in which Christians and Muslims live together and share common concerns as fellow citizens. The dialogue of beliefs, the sharing of theological doctrines and philosophical ideas to grow in understanding of each other and of the different ways in which God has revealed himself to his people. And the dialogue of faith, of how fellowship in faith and respect for each other's worship, spiritual exercises and our struggles with God can inform our own. After all, many of our religious practices share common origins. As Ali Hassania rightly states, if one accepts religion, they should accept the boundaries and principles of that religion. Indeed, full knowledge and understanding of our own faith allows much greater depth and integrity in dialogue and will deepen our understanding and engagement of the others. True tolerance can only come with knowledge and in a spirit of gentleness and respect. And where the example of true tolerance is set in faith and love and in living dialogue, others, I believe, will follow. I pray and hope that that dialogue, that engagement, and our friendship, that friendship, is something that we can develop and continue for all the reasons mentioned. God bless you, and thank you.